And this is why I'm an advocate of things like practices like restorative justice or transformative justice, right? Because like to your point, like what's driving people's fear there is a fear of harm, right?
Yes.
So what if
Or
what
loss.
or loss? So what happens if we name the thing and say, hey, let's create a way as we take this step to collectively work through problems, right? Because for me, it's like start from the ground up. Let's figure out how we can address something that goes down in our space as we create this new world. If we can agree to address a issue from a holistic lens, like what are the conditions that made this thing happen? Because it's not just about the thing that happened. So someone loses someone else, or someone loses a thing, harm was done to somebody. It's also about the conditions that create that harm, right? Because nothing happens in a vacuum. So what do we say if we say, okay, all right, we know that folks are gonna get in conflict. We know that people are gonna have disagreements. We know that catastrophes are gonna happen. How do we navigate those things? If we can address those collectively, particularly in a way that keeps into account how things happen and how we can change the conditions so that we can limit the possibility of it happening again, I think it makes it that much easier and necessary, honestly, to take that step as you're mentioning for like something more collective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a big silent enemy is not the teachers, but the schooling
Yeah,
of our
absolutely.
children.
Absolutely.
Um, I actually, in terms of what it was, what I'll say, in my opinion, it was supposed to be, I
Mm-hmm.
like public school, the
Mm-hmm.
idea of it, but I hate public school. I hate public
In
charter
practice.
and a lot of private schools,
Yeah.
how it turned out.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I don't mean just the surface level of, in Texas, they took the slavery word out. So, yeah, that's bullshit too. But
But before that.
before that, and more fundamentally,
Mm-hmm.
the, and I already talked about this too in like two other episodes, but it's so important. The fact that on tests, there's one right answer and a bunch of wrong answers. And so you
Mm-hmm.
develop this ideology and thinking that if that there's a right way to be yourself, and there's a right way to, and there's a bunch of wrong, one right way is the
Right.
point, and there's everything else is basically wrong. That happens because year after year for 12 or 14, 16 years in a row, there's only one right answer for the thing that matters most, which is your school career, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is, for most things outside of like science projects, there's no collaboration, there's no cooperation. You have to do it yourself, you have to think it yourself. I'm only calling on one person. You must raise your hand, you know what I'm saying? And I'm going to call on you, and you have to get it right. And if you don't get it right, then you're not as smart as George or Sally or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that those, and there's more, but those fundamental um lessons, right? And then there's more surface level stuff too that's we don't learn about taxes till grad school. We don't learn, about community and gardening and nutrition and things until after sometimes grad school, till you just out
That's
here with the disease and now you have to research it. Like basically until you're in your practice, if you are a nutritionist,
mm-hmm.
or like I said, when you have a disease or your daddy gets a stroke or something like that. And there's more surface level problems as well with schooling and how it turned out. But these how smart are you state tests are garbage,
Garbage. Yep.
except for understanding how to use the English language. They're garbage. That's pretty much, and math. They're garbage. Outside of those two things, because learning how to really utilize the English language is definitely useful. Mathematics is definitely useful to an extent. Now, algebra two and
Mm-hmm.
up, I don't know. Algebra two and up, everything before algebra two is yeah, you gotta. But algebra two and up, I don't know. I mean, it's not. It's like, okay, if you like it, then Make it an elective. I don't know. I don't want to get too deep
Mhm.
because I don't want to start talking bullshit. But basically, there's a lot of fluff and a lot of let me just see how smart you are, which is really
Mhm.
not even measuring your smarts. It's measuring your memorization. That's with
Exactly.
smarts and memorization are not the same thing at all.
Exactly.
But they're adjacent, and so they can trick you into believing they're the same thing.
Exactly.
But yeah. So there's a lot of I think the problem that you laid out starts in the school, and I went off
Yeah.
on a little bit of a tangent there, but
No, you're good because
I'd like
I
to hear
think
your opinion.
yeah I'd like to add to it because for me it's all about getting to the root, right? This we're in the U.S. The U.S. was born in violence. It was born in the genocide of indigenous folks here. It was born in the kidnapping and exploitation of Africans. It was born in this violent carving out the of this empire, right? And its tentacles are spread throughout the planet. 1,000 military stations across the planet. And the thing I start there because empires have to maintain control, right, in order to survive. So, what does that say about our schools, right? That says, hey, the way that we teach you, we want to teach you how you should think in order to maintain this empire, which means that, okay, this empire was built on death dealing and death and genocide, right? So the teachings, the underpinnings of what we learn are going to be death dealing. They're going to be, hey, you're going to work till you die. You're going to think how you're supposed to be thinking until you die, right? And to your point about, okay, we're not learning about these things like taxes or nutrition. Well, part of that is if we look at schools as a form of or an exertion of power by the empire, yeah, the things that you're not supposed to know about or they're not teaching you most likely are the things that are gonna give you the ability to exert your power
Make
against
you
the
less
empire.
reliant on them. Yeah.
Absolutely, because then you'll ask more critical questions like, why are we even doing this? Why is it structured the way that it is, which will lead you to some very revolutionary conclusions. So yeah, like I totally agree with you. Like it's there's so many aspects of it that are designed to exploit. I mean, even down to like you said, like everything's hyper individualized. What can this one person do versus what can you do collectively? And it's all standardized. It's like instead of looking at each student and thinking about the way that they learn, their strengths, and developing those, it's like, no, you all learn this one thing, and if you fail, fine. If not, oh well.